But give a hand to Matt and Josh.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming. I'm Matt, this is Josh. We're the co-founders of Origin Protocol. Tonight we're really happy to have you guys here. This is actually our first developer-focused meetup. So we've done many meetups before where we've talked about high-level business vision and our strategy, but today we're going to get really into the details technically. So I hope you guys are ready. We have a great lineup for you. Before we begin, we wanted to make a little bit of an announcement. Keep this confidential because you guys are getting a first sneak peek.
No tweeting.
For everyone else in the entire world. No tweets, okay? Tonight we're very excited to announce that we've actually quietly already pushed to mainnet as of last week. So Origin Protocol is now live on mainnet. We're in mainnet beta. This means that those of you in the crowd that are developers today, you can actually look at our code. It's all open source. It's on GitHub. And you can start playing around with it. You can actually go to our dApp at dApp.originprotocol.com, create your first listings, and sell something to someone else in a totally peer-to-peer way. We think this is really important. It's the first milestone for us. It's the first time that anyone on our platform will be able to buy or sell directly on the blockchain, peer-to-peer. And so we can be more proud of our engineering team. We're really excited about our developer community, hopefully getting a chance to play around with it and beginning this vision and quest of ours to have many different decentralized applications.
Yeah, we just want to thank our community. Like, we couldn't have done this without all of you. And for all of the developers on our team and our extended team, this is just one step along the way. This is the beginning for us, not the end. And there's lots of work ahead of us that we still have to do. When you look at our dApp, we've worked really hard to make it look simple and easy to use. And so you can forget for a moment that this is, completely different than anything we've had before. It's completely decentralized. It's just a bunch of HTML and JavaScript talking directly to IPFS and the blockchain with no central server sitting in between at all. And so that is something that we're really excited about. It also means that when you play around with the dApp, you have to keep in mind things are a little bit different. You're responsible for managing your own private keys, backing them up safely. If you lose them, we can't help you. Right? We have a messaging system, so you can message other buyers and sellers on the platform. We have identity, so you can create your profiles. And we have simple centralized arbitration. So we are able to intervene if you have a problem, but only up to the amount that is escrowed in the smart contract. So we encourage you to check it out, play with it, and give us feedback, file bugs, and help us figure out what we can do better and how we can improve this.
And as Josh said, there's a lot of things that we're working on right now. There's many more other features that we could use your guys' help working on. So again, everything's open source. It's on GitHub. In the coming weeks and months, we're looking to work on new features. We want to do fractional usage to allow for home sharing, car sharing, rental services. We want to support non-fungible tokens. We want to harden our infrastructure. We want to make our developer libraries easier to consume. And the only way that we're going to get better is with real developers and real users using what we've built. And giving us that feedback, right? So don't be shy. Give us harsh feedback on things that are broken or not working for you. And if you're so inclined to, please contribute. We're looking for people to help us out. You can just hop right into our Discord, start jamming with us. We're looking for people to code with us. So please help us out.
Yeah, check it out at dApp.originprotocol.com. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And one thing I forgot to check on, who here has a good fundamental understanding of what Origin Protocol is? Because I'm going to call you up, and you're going to give the pitch to everybody else. Who here would like a little bit more of a welcome to that? Okay, cool. So I'll do it to best of my knowledge, because I think everybody's got their own version and their own love for what this project is and what it can do and why they're passionate and why we're working on it and why we're building our dApps on it. So Origin Protocol is a series of protocols that helps you build sharing economy style companies on the blockchain. So think about everything that you use for Uber or Airbnb just technically, and how that can be built with protocols for specifically decentralized apps. So what does it take to build an Airbnb? You need a search, you need hosts, you need listings, you need identity, you need trust, you need that commerce layer. And so what Origin is doing is kind of building all of that, and like WordPress is to blogging, we are to sharing economy on blockchain. Is that about right, team? So what we're doing is building that so you can use it. So we're not really going to launch an Airbnb competitor. We're not really going to launch a Uber competitor, but we hope you do. And we want to provide that technology for you. So Frank, do you want to come up next? No, Micah. Micah's up next. John's up next. We're just going in backwards order. John's going to talk. Well, you want to set up? Or you all good?
I'm good. I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to elaborate on your elevator pitch.
More of an elevator pitch. We're going to explain what it does, where we're going, our roadmap. And one thing I'd like to point out that I don't know if is in any of our presentations is by doing a mainnet launch in Q3, we hit every single roadmap goal on that we set up over a year ago. Or a year ago tomorrow? Tuesday. So it's a pretty fun team to be around, and thanks for coming.
And tomorrow happens to be the 1-year anniversary.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm going to sit, if you guys don't mind, keep this casual. My name is John, and I work on BD at Origin. And what I'm going to do is basically just give a high-level overview of what we've been up to, why we're building what we're building, and then I'll be handing it off to a couple of the engineers to dig a little bit deeper into the platform and give you guys an opportunity to ask some more questions. So really quickly, if you guys want to follow along all the support we can get, this QR code is for our Telegram channel. So if you guys are on Telegram, you can go ahead and add us there. There's also going to be another slide later in the presentation as well, just in case. And there will be a slide that covers all sorts of different resources and links that you guys can use more. So over the last 20 years or so, the way people transact has totally changed. Companies like eBay and Craigslist, which started, I believe, in 1995, completely changed the entire dynamic of the way people bought and sold things online. But the number one thing that these marketplaces really do is serve as a matchmaking service. They provide a place for buyers and sellers to meet, and this is overall how they justify most of their fees. They've definitely solved some other problems along the way, things like reputation and identity, dispute resolution, and I'm certainly grateful for all of these companies for what they've done, but I think that has become clear lately that there's a much better way, and regardless of who you ask, whether it's somebody from Wall Street or somebody that's a hardcore anarchist or technologist, a lot of people will agree that one of the most obvious ways to apply blockchain is to cut out the middlemen of marketplaces like this. So we thought a lot about this as we built out Origin, and we've decided we want to tackle this market. Why do we want to cut out the middlemen from these marketplaces? Well, first, I like to start with a quote from Coleman, our head of partnerships here. We envision that one day peer-to-peer marketplaces will be truly peer-to-peer and not peer-to-corporate monopoly-to-peer. So if you hear Uber and Airbnb, they're usually described as peer-to-peer, but there's actually a huge organization sitting in the middle. They're collecting all of your data, and they're putting it into a silo, which is what allows them to collect these egregious fees along the way. So why do we want to go after these marketplaces? We think about it in two separate buckets. So you have a couple of financial incentive reasons and a couple of reasons that deal more with access. The first thing that comes to mind is lower fees. This is usually what people can really wrap their heads around. Most of these marketplaces charge 20, 30% fees, sometimes even much higher. And again, this is mostly just to do with the act of matchmaking of buyer and seller. But when you cut out the middleman, the fees go along with it, and this opens up a lot of opportunity and puts money back into the pockets of the buyers and the sellers. One of the other big reasons in the financial incentive side of things is to redistribute value. So if you think about where are the first Uber drivers, the first Airbnb hosts today, well, they're probably still driving for Uber, and they're probably making less than they were day one, despite the fact that the founders of Uber, the investors, all made a ton of money from the growth of this company. The original people that helped build the network are left behind. So we think that with these crypto economic structures, you can actually do much better, and you can incentivize the early users of the platform to help with the health and the growth of the network. On the access side of things, we're really excited about being able to promote free and open commerce. So all over the world, Uber is banned, Airbnb is banned or heavily regulated. If you look at San Francisco, Airbnb removed something like 50% of their listings in one day because Airbnb is a single point of failure. It makes it very easy for a government body to come in and say, we're going to fine you for every listing on your platform that is not in compliance with our laws, and 50% of these listings are gone. So whether or not you agree with the reasoning behind this regulation, it's definitely a pretty scary prospect that this can happen so easily. And lastly, probably the biggest mission I would say here, and although it's a little bit longer term, is to serve the unbanked. So there are billions of people in the world that don't have access to a credit card or a bank account, which are required to participate in these networks. And we're excited about the fact that most of these people will over time get a cheap Android smartphone that will allow them to leapfrog the traditional financial system and participate in one of these marketplaces in a truly peer-to-peer fashion. Is this one working? I guess they're both on. So, like Andrew mentioned, we are not trying to build the next Airbnb or Uber. We are trying to build this horizontal platform that will allow many, many new decentralized marketplaces to be built by many developers around the world. So how are we doing this? First, protocols. So these are smart contracts to cover things like how do you represent a listing on the blockchain, how do you represent identity, which we'll cover in more detail today. And on top of this, we've built a JavaScript library. Not everybody knows how to write a smart contract or to write Solidity, but most developers know JavaScript. And so we are excited about getting the power of this and abstracting away all of the blockchain technology and making it easier for these developers to quickly spin up a truly decentralized marketplace. And then lastly, we've built our own application on top of this to eat our own dog food and to show people kind of the power of these decentralized marketplaces. And this is what we will be launching and announcing tomorrow. So this is where you can actually visit this marketplace, dap.originprotocol.com, live on mainnet. So go ahead and check that out. One of the biggest pieces to this is identity. If you can solve identity, you can much more easily solve things like reputation and dispute resolution. So we knew we had to solve this problem early, and we decided to go with an open standard, and we adopted ERC 725, which was proposed by Fabian Vogelsteller, the creator of the ERC20 token. And we're going to go into more detail about how this works, but at a high level, you own a smart contract that represents your identity, and third parties can make attestations to this. So what we have live in our dApp today are digitally verifiable attestations. So your phone number, your email address, your Twitter and Facebook profiles, and we can prove that the owner of your Ethereum, of one Ethereum wallet address is the same owner of these phone numbers, emails, and social media profiles. One of the big advantages to this approach is that it creates shared network effects. So if one user signs up for a decentralized home sharing marketplace that is powered by Origin, they will now be able to access all of the other Origin-powered marketplaces. And they'll also be able to take this identity and this reputation potentially and bring it to the other platforms that have adopted this standard outside of Origin, which is really, really important. And this brings
me to the ERC 725 Alliance. We didn't want to go at this alone. We wanted to choose an open standard that many different people could help collaborate on. So we have brought together many different projects who are adopting this standard so that we can share knowledge and collaborate on building it out. There's definitely some big names here, Status and Polymath, and would encourage you guys to check out erc725alliance.org for some more information there. One piece that we knew that we had to build was messaging. If you buy something from somebody, or you want to buy something from somebody, you likely want to talk with them first and make sure you have your questions answered. Talk to them after to make sure that they have all the information they need to deliver what you bought. So we built a chat system within Origin, but again, we wanted to do this in a way that was truly decentralized, truly open. And so we've built a secure and encrypted and most importantly auditable messaging system. And this is really a peer-to-peer system. There's no server sitting in the middle. And it allows for a third-party auditor to come in the event of a dispute and view the message log to have more information to make a decision on the dispute. So we'll dig a little bit more into this later today. And one of the big frustrations for user experience for decentralized applications today. MetaMask is pretty much a requirement for most, or if not all, of these dApps, but I think there's a lot of exciting things happening that will help solve this issue. So one of the things that we built is basically a mobile wallet that will allow you to sign transactions and allow you to interact with this decentralized application without needing MetaMask. This is also especially useful if you think about somebody buys something that you've listed on a marketplace. You need to know that that listing has been purchased as quickly as possible. So this mobile app will also help with things like notifications for these transactions. And I think this might be the last piece here before I hand it over. The last major piece about the product, at least. Another major speed bump, I guess you could say, on the way to mass adoption is cost. So you can think, if I buy something on a marketplace on Origin and I want to leave a review, do I want to pay a gas fee to leave that review? Do I want to pay to transact? There's a lot of costs involved in these transactions. So we're certainly going to tackle this problem ourselves with our token by incentivizing users to do things that promote the health and the growth of the network. But we also wanted to provide another option. And essentially what this sponsored gas does is it allows the application developer to actually cover the gas costs for these transactions, which should make it much more easy to onboard users and to get them actually interacting with your application. This is an amazing picture of our team here, taken in our office. We have a cool photo studio built in somehow. So this is us, and you're going to hear from a couple more of these people today. We also have an amazing team of investors from all over the world. Definitely want to call out some of the local ones here. Pantera Capital was our first investor and has been incredibly helpful. We have some well-known angel investors here, Alexis Ohanian, founder of Reddit, Gary Tan, partner at Y Combinator, and Steve Jang, founding advisor of Uber, as well as some more traditional VCs as well, like Foundation Capital. And we're also excited about the over 40 partners that we've already signed up to start building on Origin. They are really excited to not have to worry about rebuilding all of these things that are common to all marketplaces like reputation and escrow, and rather focus on what is specific to their marketplace. So we've already signed up quite a few, as you can see, and we have more coming in every day, and that momentum will only build as we actually launch this platform on DomainNet in the upcoming days and weeks here. We also have a much more extended team than in this picture that I just showed. So we have over 50 contributors. We're an open source project. All of our code is out there on GitHub, so we encourage you to check it out. And a couple of our engineers actually became full-time recently, but started off by just contributing to our project because they were really interested in what we were up to. So we're really excited about the community that we've built, and we want more and more people to be involved and come help out. So how can you join us? Developers, of course, if you're a developer here, check out our code base. I'll show some links to some resources for you guys. We would encourage you to come help us out. We do all of our work out in the open and all of our collaboration out in the open, including a weekly public engineering call. And if you know of any marketplace businesses that are either thinking about building a decentralized marketplace or even perhaps an existing marketplace that wants to move on to the blockchain, it's really important to us to have as many conversations as possible. We need our partners to be successful for us to be successful, so we'd love to learn from as many of these marketplace businesses as possible. And lastly, if you have any interest in us at all, check out our Telegram, check out our Discord. We have an amazing community that has helped with all sorts of stuff, even if you can't code, things like translating our website and our DApp. Localization is really important to us, so we're always looking for help and encourage you to reach out. So now I'll pass it off, and I'll give you one more opportunity for this Telegram QR code, but I'm going to pass it off to Micah, who will, Micah, okay. I wasn't sure if I pulled an Andrew there. Micah, who will go dig a little bit deeper into the actual DApp with a demo. Micah?
Hey everyone, I'm Micah, so I'm an engineer at Origin working primarily on building out our decentralized application, or DApp, and also working on the Origin.js API that John mentioned, which again is our public-facing API that our partners and other developers will use in the near future. Let me move to maybe. There we go. Move to our DApp itself. One of the first things that you will see when you come to the DApp is a welcome message. Here we invite you to enable Origin messaging. And so this is something that John mentioned that allows you to communicate with other buyers and sellers and also communicate with Origin support. And in order to use messaging or buy or sell on the platform, you'll have to have an Ethereum wallet, of course, and a Web3 enabled browser. So you should be able to use Coinbase Wallet, Trust Wallet, Mist Browser, Brave, or just the MetaMask extension that you might be familiar with. So I already have that installed, and I will click Enable Messaging. That will ask me to sign using my Ethereum private key to say that I'm ready to start using the Origin messaging system. I'll do that. And then it will also ask me to sign another message potentially if I haven't done it before. That would, that step would have generated an ephemeral private key, which is different from your Ethereum private key. It lives in your local storage in your browser. And so you would use that key to then sign a message to add yourself to what we call the global registry so that other users can find you. So now I have this confirmation message here from Origin support saying that I'm good to go. I'm ready to message support or another user. So I could go to, for example, one of these sample listings, and I could find a user here and about the seller. They're unnamed so far, but there's a contact link where I could click and send them a message. I'm going to switch to a seller's account for a second and talk really quickly about what John mentioned in regard to identity. That's the other thing that's really important to do when you first come to our DApp. Because you not only want to be able to communicate with the counterparty, but you also want them to have you want to increase the likelihood of a successful transaction by giving them, by verifying your identity so that they have increased faith in who you are and be more willing to transact with you. So if I, with this account, if I go to edit the profile, then I can, add my name, a picture, and say, I love Origin. Now I have the opportunity to do one of the attestations that John mentioned. So in this case, I can verify my phone, my email address, or one of my social accounts so that it's just one more layer of verifying who I am so that the other user knows that there's some degree of trust there. So let's see if we can verify a phone number. And I'm going to see if I can use a little handy tool here so I don't have to use my own phone number for this demo. Let's try this one. And it doesn't seem to like that number, so I will try a different one. I'm going to get a text message. And then I'm going to type in a verification code to show that I do control that phone number at the very least. Now it's successful, and it tells me don't forget to publish your changes to the blockchain. It's important to note here that my phone number itself, or my email address, my Twitter handle, etc., is not going to be published in raw, unencrypted text to the blockchain. It's more about posting the fact that I control this account. So that does two things. It helps maintain my privacy, but also increases the likelihood that another party will have faith in me as a prospective buyer or seller. So it's important to remember to publish that to the blockchain, and I'll do that now. Am I ready to go public? My first name, last name, description, and picture will be on the blockchain, but my phone number will not. So I'll get another MetaMask transaction to confirm. Save that. And then we also have this pending blockchain transaction confirmation utility. So I don't know if any of you have experienced yet on mainnet, but there are some delays, you could say, with processing transactions at this stage of Ethereum. And so we have that tool so you can see this will continue to build out this UI element here. You can come back and check on the status of your transaction later. So now that I've identified myself as a seller, I might go back to the buyer's account. And I can go to, well, you know what? Sorry. Let me go back to the seller account real quick. And I've just named these in MetaMask. There's nothing that distinguishes a seller from a buyer on the marketplace. And actually, I'll enable messaging too while I'm here for the seller. So here I get the second MetaMask transaction asking me to use the ephemeral private key that I just generated to add myself to the global registry. So I do that. Now I'm good to go. I get the confirmation message saying you can send messages. So now that I have verified my identity and also enabled messaging, it's a great time to become a seller on the Origin platform. So all I do is add a listing, choose a category or a listing type. I'll just say for sale to keep it simple. Maybe I've got a bicycle. And I set the price in Ether. I get a little indication as to how many US dollars that is at the moment. And then I can add some pictures. There they are. Continue. And then I get an opportunity to what we call boost your listing. This is where the origin token comes into play in our first iteration in our beta. So I have the opportunity to kind of increase the visibility of my listing because I want to give an incentive to a DApp developer or to one of the partners to really surface my listing so that it gets more visibility from prospective buyers. So I can adjust the scale as to how much token I want to use. You see over here on the right that I have 200 OGN in my wallet. So we'll set that to maybe 50. And then I'll go to review my listing. It's just a summary of what I typed into the form. And all of this data, I say all of this data, most of this data is being stored off-chain to reduce gas costs. And so a lot of it is stored on IPFS. And when I click done, I get another MetaMask prompt to submit my listing. It's been created. I have the opportunity to create a different listing or go and see all of them where I hope to find mine, and there it is. And you can see the blockchain transaction is really quick on these listing creations. Much faster than the identity, which, as John mentioned, is still very much in flux. That ERC 725 standard is something we're actively working on with a lot of other projects. So it's cutting edge and it's exciting. So if I switch back to the buyer, I can go to that listing. I see the description. I could actually view the raw IPFS data, which is kind of cool. And then I see about the seller. You see his name there and the fact that he's verified a phone. I could contact him if I have any questions. But I think I'll just go ahead and make a purchase. So here we have kind of a call to action to verify my identity if I want to do that and increase the likelihood that the offer is accepted. But I think I'll just skip that for now because I happen to know Micah. I'll submit my offer. And now the seller I wait for the seller to take action. They can accept or reject my offer, or I could potentially withdraw it before they do that. And I guess one other thing to point out here is since I have made this what is effectively a binding offer, it's recorded on chain, I have escrowed my funds of 1 ETH. And as it says here, if the offer is rejected, those escrowed funds will be returned to me. So I can go here and see my purchases. This one is pending. I don't have any that are complete. But I could also click through here and see the transaction status. I've made an offer. The next step is to wait for the seller to approve or reject the offer. And then I see there are 2 more steps to come. Hopefully it's accepted, or I could withdraw it. And then eventually we'll complete the sale. Here's the raw Ethereum transaction hash that I could see on Etherscan, and then just a summary of the status of this listing. So I will switch then back to the seller's account. And here I see on the same URL, the same summary of the transaction status, but from the seller's perspective about the buyer, unnamed. Oh, and if I wasn't already on this URL, I have now a notification that's entirely derived from the blockchain. It's not being pushed to me from a central server. That's happening through Origin.js, the public JavaScript API that we've talked about. So I could click on that if I wasn't already here, and it would bring me to this route. For the seller, I have a few different steps: accepting the offer, completing the sale, and then potentially leaving a review, like John mentioned, as one extra step that we want to incentivize the seller to do. So I can accept or reject this. If I click reject, I might change my mind and reverse that. And then if I click accept, then I just submit this transaction. It's recorded on the blockchain, and you see that it's happening at the moment. And then in just a second, it will give me some guidance as to what I should do next. This fulfillment checklist will be conditioned based on the type of listing. So if it were like an Airbnb style listing, like a homestay, then it might tell me, make sure the place is clean, send a message with all of the, specific instructions and for how to get into the space, that sort of thing. But this is a pretty simple one about bicycle. So either, ship the thing or tell the buyer where to come pick it up. Be sure to message them, and then when you're done, leave a review. So I might actually try this out. I might just go ahead and contact on About the Buyer. Here is the buyer's ETH address. I might say, hey, I've accepted your offer. Thanks so much. Would you like to pick up the bike? And when I click send, I'm now taken to that chat UI that John mentioned. I have another conversation potentially going on with Origin support. And here I see the message that I just sent and a summary of the listing or purchase context that applies to this conversation that we're having. So I'll go back to the home page and then switch to the buyer's account again. And when I do that, I have a message from Micah. And I can say, yeah, perfect. Let me know when and where to be. And there you go. As John mentioned, this is fully decentralized messaging. So these messages are encrypted between me and the seller. They're stored in OrbitDB, which is built on top of IPFS. And I'm just using that ephemeral private key that's stored in my browser. No one else has access to it. And I can go to a different browser and do one MetaMask transaction using the same Ethereum wallet and regenerate that key for use in that browser. But until, if for whatever reason, the seller and I end up having some kind of disagreement, the bike isn't in the condition that I expected, or it doesn't get delivered in the worst case scenario or something like that, then I can open an arbitration case, open a dispute, or report a problem, as we call it back in this purchase detail. So what am I? I'm the buyer. If I go back here, I could report a problem down here below this call to action. So if the seller, the next thing that needs to happen is the seller and I need to get on the same page. I go pick up the bike or they ship it. And then once I decide, am I satisfied with this transaction or not, then this is when I come back to this page and I have the option to leave a review or report a problem. And if I were to indicate that I'm, particularly unhappy when I'm going to leave this review, like I'm going to give it a 1 star, then I'm prompted, is there a problem? If so, then you might want to open a dispute and not yet release the funds to the seller. And in that case, that's when I could potentially open a dispute and bring in Origin's centralized arbitration team. And at that point, I would grant access to a shared key that exists between myself and the seller. And I, as a user, don't have to understand how that works. There's no UI element that requires me to, figure out what that key is or something like that. I would just, I would say, yeah, I want to open a dispute. I would type in here what my problem is. And when I click submit, it would present that key to the centralized arbitrator. And then the centralized arbitrator would have access to our conversation, because in the dialogue between myself and the seller, there might have been some promises made that weren't they didn't deliver on their promises, and so then the centralized arbitrator would be able to make a ruling on that. But let's assume that this one went really well, and so maybe in the early 2000 eBay style, I say, I'm really happy with this. So I'll complete the sale and release the funds to the seller. It takes a minute for the blockchain transaction to happen. Oh, and then I get to wait for the seller to leave a review because I just left one for them. If I go back to the seller's perspective, I get the same form. And at this point, the funds have been released to me. I just have an incentive to say, you're the best. Sign the transaction, and it's complete. Here's the history recorded on Etherscan. And now when another prospective buyer goes to the homepage, they see that this listing is sold. Well, that's my perspective. If I'm a totally different user, then I see this one is sold. Maybe you want to go look for another one. So just as a reminder, everything that you saw is completely decentralized. It's all developed out in the open, in the public realm, and it's all open source. So like John said, we'd love for you to come and hang out in Discord in our engineering channel where we have conversations about these implementations all the time. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we have an open engineering call where anyone can just come to a Google Hangout, and we do sprint planning there. We do demos for one another when we're building out these features, and we'd love nothing more for you to come and contribute if it's something you're interested in. Thanks.
Actually having Frank up next. Yes, I'm not gonna screw that up. So that, I mean, who here has seen a lot of blockchain demos? That's probably the most advanced one you've seen. Is that right? As far as user experience, design, implementation, actually having real customers, actually having a real thing. It takes a lot to do that. That looks simple, but if you've released mainnet or testnet code, you know exactly how hard that is. So system architecture, Frank is gonna walk us through that. Just kind of trying to let you know how it actually is pieced together and works. Is that cool? Do you want to hold or do you want to throw that in? Everybody give a hand to Frank.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, as Andrew said, like it takes a lot of attention to details to bring something like that together. And so the team over the last few weeks has been doing an amazing job at putting this mainnet release. Thanks to John, and I just realized he actually made them prettier. I just sent him like pretty terrible slides. So yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, I'm an engineer at the in the Origin Protocol team. Let me give you a little bit of high-level view of the system, and then during the Q&A session, you guys should feel free to ask us detailed questions, and we'll be happy to provide these answers. So what is the platform? So we think of it as a way for developers to really quickly build the apps. And so we want to provide a platform that's going to provide the building blocks. And so you can see these building blocks here. We have the smart contracts for doing transactions on the Ethereum network. We have data storage. We have identity, messaging, and discovery. And in the future, you'll be able to pick whichever building blocks you need and build your own DApp. So just for those of you who might not be, like I was 3 months ago actually, very familiar with what a DApp is, it actually runs entirely in the browser, right? It's a little bit mind-boggling, but we're all used to like a standard stack where you have like a front end, a business logic, and then your data storage. This is completely different. Here you have a front end and the business logic running in the browser. And then it accesses the Ethereum network and the IPFS network for storing smart contract and user data. In addition to that, we provide as a community service, we provide some centralized components. For example, search, which is still very difficult to implement in a fully decentralized way. So in the short term, we provide that as a central service. So let me give you some more details in each of these verticals. So the front end. So we built it's entirely built in JavaScript. So we use React and Redux. We rely on a common layer that we call Origin.js for what you could call typically the middleware or the business logic. So this Origin.js, Origin.js library again provide you access to all these building blocks components for accessing your data, for accessing messaging, accessing search, and so on and so forth. It's it's something that we built with the expectation that things will change. So a lot of the work that we did in the last few weeks was making sure that we can upgrade these building blocks. So we expect our contracts, we expect search, we expect a lot of these building blocks to improve over the next few weeks and few months as we continue focusing on it. So we built in what we call upgradability, which will allow us to update these building blocks to provide new features while keeping the same interface for the app developers. Let's take a quick deep dive into the smart contract vertical. Smart contracts are built on top of the Ethereum virtual machine. We focused on 3 different type of contracts. We have what we call our marketplace contracts. These are the ones that are handling the transactions. So transaction between the buyers and the sellers, as Micah demonstrated. Then we have the Origin token, which is ERC20 compliant. And finally, we have the identity piece. So these are these are very different contracts that we provided. File storage. So we quickly realized when we were developing the platform that it's actually very inefficient and sometimes impossible to store all your data on chain. So we took this hybrid approach where we store some data on chain, a very limited amount of data, pretty much focusing on transaction level data. And then all your peripheral data, for example, listings, profile data, these get stored off-chain, what we call off-chain in IPFS. Since we built a lot of the platform in JavaScript, it was natural to use JSON schema for doing all the validation of the data that flows in and out from IPFS. So that's our file storage or data storage layer. Then identity, so that's, as Micah demonstrated, to add your user profile, to get your attestation for your social handles, your email, your phone. And so this is using the ERC 725 standard. Messaging, we talked about it, so encrypted P2P communication between the buyer and seller with optional possibility for an arbitrator to access the data if one of the party wants to. Leveraging OBDB and IPFS. And then finally, the discovery piece, which is searching and browsing listings. So where we index both the blockchain data and the off-chain data, the IPFS data. And currently, as I mentioned, this is centralized. And I don't recognize a lot of these links. John, again, changed my slide. But I think the most important one is originprotocol.com/developers. I think we'd love for you guys to get involved, and that would be the first one that I would encourage you to check out. And I think, and that's it. I think we're going to open it up for Q&A now. Is that the plan? Yeah, I think so. Andrew, you're the master coordinator here.
Yes. Do we have well, first of all, a hand to Frank and all of the engineers. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, we'll go up here and then we'll swing over. Yep.
Just curious about the architecture of reputation systems.
So right now what we're doing is we are storing reviews. So both the buyer and the seller can enter a review. We haven't yet worked on a system to sort of like summarize the reputation for a given seller or buyer. But that's something that we'll be looking at. Again, that's something that's like super hard to do in a decentralized way. And I think the rest of the team should feel free to comment, but our approach is to come up with a realistic and simple solution first, get some adoption, and then figure out how we can generalize and make it better. Yeah.
Go here for the next one. Right before you ask that question, though, I want to point out The originprotocol.com/developers has a link to the GitHub and a GitHub Great First Poll category. So if you want a first poll, you can find it there. Yep. First issue, yes.
So IPFS is going to eventually cost money. So who's going to eventually cover those costs? Is it like the marketplace or the user?
Yeah, it's a great point. So currently we are providing an IPFS gateway as a community service. In the long term, we are definitely looking at integrating with Filecoin, which is basically the paying version, if you want, of IPFS, where a seller would or the marketplace would have to cover the cost for storage. And I think the horizon for that is sort of like Q3, as far as I understand, the Filecoin roadmap. So Q3 of next year.
So the marketplace will decide whether it's like people starting the marketplace that pay for it or the user individually?
Yes, I think it's going to be up to the app developers to figure out what model works best for them. I think it's something that we still have to flesh out, but I think we will want to be as open as possible and give options to developers in terms of what makes sense for their specific marketplace.
First off, thanks for having us. This is really impressive. Great work. I'm curious to know more about the businesses that you're looking for to go on the platform. What kind of incentives do you have in place to attract these businesses to go on your decentralized platform? And are you going after some that are already centralized services to then become decentralized and take tokens?
Take this one.
Welcome back to the stage, Sean.
I know it's like a lot of questions, but I'm kind of wondering how you're thinking through that.
Yeah, so when it comes to incentivizing developers, I think there's a few different ways that we're doing that. The first is simply that it will allow them to go to market much more quickly, rather than expecting each developer of each individual marketplace to build their own version of identity and reputation and all of these pieces that make up a marketplace. They can leverage what we've already built, and they can tap into our framework and then again just focus on what they need to do to make their marketplace successful, like acquiring new users, getting them onboarded, and getting them using it. So that's probably the main thing. There's going to be a lot to work out when it comes to things like costs, which is something that you brought up with Filecoin. There's all sorts of issues with token interaction. There's going to be many tokens involved in a lot of these transactions. It could be that the partner has their own token. It could be that Filecoin's involved. There's probably going to be a lot of tokens involved in a lot of these scenarios. But we envision a future where a lot of this is done in the background, just like when you go to Amazon, they're probably pinging a Twilio API and pinging a Stripe API or whatever the case may be. There's a lot happening behind the scenes, but as a user, you just click buy and then something comes to your door. So we think a lot of the token interaction will probably look something. For incentivizing developers, we definitely want to work very closely with them in the beginning. Like I said, for us to be successful, partners need to be successful. So we're going to definitely invest heavily in just spending time with them and understanding what they need out of the platform to be successful. But yeah.
Speaking of the future and what we're doing, we're doing some pretty innovative stuff here. You saw zero gas messaging, which I don't know another project that's doing that quite yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, sweet. And one of our team members is famous for, in his words, not mine, lighting stuff on fire and getting stuff to work. And so let's talk a little bit about what we're going next, what we're working on. Yupan was the first engineer at YouTube and founded a small financial service called PayPal. Please welcome Yupan. So come on up. I'll ask one question. So we've seen what we've launched on mainnet. What are you excited about for the next sprints coming up?
What I'm excited about, what I've been working on is basically the mobile wallet. I think you guys saw a little hints of that. But what that allows us to connect with is it allows us to get new users that's coming off the bat code onto our system. And that allows us also, our mobile wallet is a little bit different from the other wallets out there, like the Brave browser and stuff like that, or even like the Tosha wallet is old, where we can actually have our dApps that run on mobile Safari connect directly with us. So then if you get something in a link through your email, for example, and if you're not like an enthusiastic crypto user, you can just check it out. You say, oh, how do I get that working? And you could just open that in mobile Safari, and that'll actually launch you into iTunes stores and open that, and you can install our mobile wallet and be able to use the no gas solution to make your first sell, or even, we're exploring ways to allow credit card transactions to be able to make you purchase on the blockchain as well, basically.
Should we do one final question, and then I want to get the entire Origin team up on stage, because we're not often together like this.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm sorry if I missed this. First of all, great demo.
Thanks.
I was wondering, how exactly is dispute resolution managed?
Somebody remind me, what's the number of the proposal, the standard? Does anybody remember? They're similar to ERC20, ERC725, these open standards that are proposed in the Ethereum community. There's one for messaging, for arbitration. And one of the large projects that's working on arbitration called Kleros, K-L-E-R-O-S, they have built a variety of sample contracts on top of that standard, or using that standard. And so in our first iteration, we're taking their sample centralized contract and using it so that a team of, currently internal Origin team, but in the future, a team of decentralized jurors would collectively vote on the outcome of that arbitration case. And like I said, that's a first iteration. That's one of the last features that we added to this first version of the platform. So it's something we're still very much exploring. And just like the identity piece, we'd love to see more collaboration from other projects and figure out what's the appropriate way to handle arbitration cases.
Cool. Thank you. Sweet. Let's grab all the Origin team and get you on stage. We actually want to take a picture. And then we'd like to do something else, which is involve, we're all about community. We say 50% technical, 50% community. So we'd actually like to invite everybody else to come up on stage and take a photo with all of you.